This has been such a challenging season for me, and I had a realization that changed absolutely everything, and I think it actually might change everything for you. And thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. And don't mind the sound of my neighbor mowing his lawn. I just thought it'd be nice to sit out here. So my eldest son, some of you may know, graduated this year. He graduated high school, which was absolutely insane and completely unexpected in how it hit me. Like, I remember when he was a newborn baby, and like dealing with having a newborn was really hard for me in a lot of ways. Like, I always loved babies, but the adjustment to my life was intense. But I absolutely loved having him as a baby. He was like my little buddy. When he was a toddler, he was always so sweet, and a preschooler, he loved his little brothers. I just started thinking of all of these things as I was approaching June, like the month where he was going to be graduating, like high school and driving and all of these things. And actually, even in the fall, I remember it was starting to hit me that it was going to happen. And it's really strange because a lot of mom guilt started coming in, and my husband was like, oh, okay, I get it. Now I know it's mom guilt, because he just like, that happens sometimes. Like, I don't know if any of you moms out there know, like, remember, but I don't know if dads have this like level of guilt that us moms do. In addition to dealing with him graduating, I then was dealing with like feeling regret about a lot of things, like times where I remember like getting mad at him, or thinking that we should have done a lot more things, like when they were little, like we should have gone to the beach more. Like, I don't know if you can relate to that, but just like thinking we live on an island, and we don't hardly ever go to the beach because it just seems so boring. So we don't go to the beach very much. And so I feel like really, really bad about that. And I think you're always going to have regrets, but that just was something that hit me. So something interesting happened, and as I was like processing this, I started looking back at my own life, and I realized like a lot of this wasn't even necessarily about my son. It was more about me. And I started looking back at like my childhood and having memories of different things, and just like recognizing like I am on my own journey, remembering when my husband and I got together, and like before we had kids, and of course like my younger two kids, and all of those, like remembering like things I did in my 20s and my 30s and my 40s, and that time in your life where you start feeling very free. Like when I was 19, I moved to Alberta and lived with my aunt and uncle, but I was very independent. Like, I took the train and the bus all over the place. And so that was like a very like impactful time of my life, because I was so independent. And for my son, I'm so excited for him. I remember being that age. Like, that's the age I was when I went to Calgary, and it was so fun and just so free and so amazing. And I just like feel so good for him. But then as I would think about that, I started going back in time, and it was just a vicious cycle. Like, everything I did, like I just felt this awful like pit in my stomach, and it was just really, really hard. And this mind-blowing concept came to me, and I'm gonna get to that in just a second. I like that little spot there where I'm like dealing with some dirt and stuff. But anyway, so I would try talking to my husband, and it was like helpful in some ways, because he also was kind of going through things, but he has like a completely different perspective than I do. And I remember one night, because he works shift work, and I couldn't sleep. Like, it started hitting me, and I was like, I started crying like as I was falling asleep, which is like crazy. That does not usually happen to me. And so then I turned on the TV, and he came in, and I was like crying in bed, and he like looked at me, and he was like so tired, and he was just like, oh gosh, like what? And I just like, he's going through something else. So I decided one of the best people to talk to would be a therapist from the sponsor of this video, BetterHelp. And what I love is it's actually super accessible, and it's personalized. It starts with a very cool questionnaire to determine the best kind of therapist and therapy to match you with, and you can request their gender, spirituality, and more. After my first session with my therapist, I already had a great reframe, and I absolutely loved her. She was so good. And you know what's really cool? She also works with people with ADHD, which is one of the things you can select on the list, which I love. Also, like, even just talking things out with a neutral party felt way, way better. So maybe you're feeling bogged down with some of the crazy things going on with the world right now, or you're dealing with mental health issues like depression or anxiety, or even you just want to work on some goals, or dealing with ADHD things. BetterHelp wants to make therapy more affordable and accessible because it's remote, which is so cool. And you can start by filling out the questionnaire, and because you may not always jive with your therapist right away, you can switch your therapist for free without stressing about insurance or more. So check out BetterHelp using the link betterhelp.com/minimalisthome, which is also linked in the description. Thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring this channel. Yep. I don't want that messy stuff mixing in with the rest. Anyway, here's the realization I had. Now, I was living in the past. Now, I know you might be like, well, duh, that's really obvious. But I realize a lot of us do. A lot of us dealing with clutter. And even how I approached music is kind of living in the past a little bit. Like, I listened to music that was meaningful to me in a certain season, like of the year, like spring, fall, summer, whatever, during a certain time period. So for example, in the summer, I love the band Tool. It reminds me of when I was like a teenager, first started listening to that band. So when do I listen to it? In the summer. That's kind of living in the past a little bit. Or I love The Cure because I listened to them in the fall because when I was 19 and living in Calgary, I listened to them when I was taking the train all of the time. I think that you naturally can't help but feel like nostalgia. And John Hodgman says nostalgia is the most toxic impulse. And I think it's not necessarily helpful to always be like seeking out things and like feeling those memories from the past all of the time. I don't think it's bad to sometimes do that, but not to actively be searching that out. And with my children, I recognized, and in my own life, that I was looking at the past and how I would never have an 8-year-old or a snuggly, freshly bathed toddler with like half dried hair, you know, and they smell so good. This is the past. Those are memories. Totally cool. Like, it is okay to like be like, oh yeah, I like this song. Like, yeah, the other day I was in a store and like an Elton John song came on, like Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and I was like, whoa, that song takes me back to being like 5. But this is the past. And for a lot of us dealing with clutter, that is the part that we are struggling to let go of, the past. So whenever I would think about the future, especially when I was thinking about like my son and all of these things, when I would think of the future, I was actually basically thinking how the future would not be the past. Like, that's kind of funny, right? No, of course, like the future is not going to be the past. Like when I think of the future, no, my own toddlers are not going to be there, but other good things are going to be there, right? And if I stay in the past, and if I postpone things, like what is it that I think will happen? And so same for us, like when we're thinking of decluttering, like if we stay in the past and we postpone things, what's going to happen? Are we thinking we're not going to die? Do we think we're going to go on and live forever? Because that's actually not what's going to happen. No matter what, well, things are going to happen. If we keep all of these things, all of these belongings, all of these things that we're not going to use again or very unlikely to use again, can we just keep things in suspended animation? I remember this lady I knew in a baby group I went to with my oldest son, and she would say, I just want to keep him in a bubble or so that they don't grow up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I kind of get that. But then what? Like then what? We're missing the important things. Like the answer and the key is to live in the present. And I know it seems obvious, but is it obvious? Like, I think that like naturally we're kind of designed to want to do things that worked. It's like animals that migrate in the winter or whatever. It's like we're meant to be like, oh, that comfortable thing in the fall is what will help me get through winter. Like it makes sense, right? But if we don't actually push past that comfort zone, we're not actually going to continue living a great and amazing life. And I know there are awesome things out there for me. I know there are amazing, awesome things out there for you. And the thing is, like right now, it's so freaking great in my life. I love it. Like the ages that my kids are, they are so fun. 3 teens, it's summertime. Like we can do so many things. They're easy. They can take care of themselves in a lot of ways. When I actually had that realization and kind of like went through a bit of a grieving process, which was totally necessary. Once I started doing that, I started living in the present. It just immediately, I felt so much better. And I realized how wonderful the present is. And the stress just melted away. And I'm only 43. I want to travel. I want to have fun. And if I'm always thinking of the past or always like thinking about the future and how it's not the past, like I also don't want to only think about the future. Like being in the present is so fun. And I want fun. I want more and more fun. I want more and more concerts. I don't need to worry that the future won't be the past. I want to hear from you. What is it that you're holding on to? Is it some things? Is it a time in your life? And what do you want to do? Like for me, I want to live my life. We're all headed to the same destination. I want to get to that destination as slow as possible, but I want to like enjoy so much of life while I'm there. And yes, like seasons have changed and they're meant to change. So I'm very excited about the future. Now, I did make an update about my channel a few months ago, and you can watch that video here because I did also have another realization about where this channel is going, and I think you would like that. I hope something great happens for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. And thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.